Grazie, Mr. President. For today's proceedings, all parties to discuss are present, except Council Kevin Sander, who will be a bit late this morning. Mr. Noonchie is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to conclude his testimony today, that is to TCW 918, as well as his duty counsel, Mom Ruti, are present in the courtroom. We also have a reserve civil party today, that is to TCCP 300. Thank you. President, thank you, Ms. Jie Siu Huang. The Chamber now decides on the request by Noonchie. The Chamber has received a waiver from Noonchie, dated 2nd December 2015, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his right to participate in and be present at the 2nd December 2015 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Noonchie by the duty doctor for the accused at ECCC, dated 2nd December 2015, which notes that Noonchie has severe back pain when he sits for long, and recommends that the Chamber grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber grants Noonchie his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. And the Chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Noonchie can follow. This applies to the whole day. The Chamber now hands the floor to the defense team for Noonchie to continue putting questions to the witness. You may proceed, Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Counsel. And good morning to you, Mr. Witness. I'll be asking you some further questions this morning. Yesterday, I finished with an admittedly complicated question in respect of something you said before DC Chem. I'm not quite sure if you remember the excerpt that I quoted to you. It was about something you said about the betrayal of Sao Pim, Runim, and Heng Samrin to the Vietnamese. I'll read that literal quote first again, just to refresh your memory, and then I will ask you first a few questions about the meeting during which this was said. Literally, you said, and I quote, as the Vietnamese, no, I will move up a little bit. They talked about the Vietnamese coming in because we had a history with Vietnam. It was about, quote unquote, Master T. As the Vietnamese entered the country, some Cambodians betrayed the country, such as Sao Pim, Mul Sambat, Heng Samrin, and others by joining the Vietnamese. Sao Pim was arrested and Heng Samrin was able to escape. He fled with 1,500 soldiers. As he escaped for 7 days, the Vietnamese fought into Svay Ring. We realized that we would fail for sure. As we would lose the war, we began to prepare at the cooperatives, districts, and other camps. We dug up the ground to bury salt and rice at all the cooperatives. End of quote. Let me first ask you, Mr. Witness, do you remember saying this to the DC Cam investigator? Do you recall having said this to him?
Witness. Good morning, Mr. President. I'd like to add further comments to what I stated. What was put to me by the Council is about something that I discussed outside the topic of the Tribunal website. And what the Council quoted was what I mentioned in 1982, and that was the time that I came to know about this event, and the knowledge was not available to me in 78 or 77 or 78. And that's what I heard about while I was at the border area. And I was not aware whether this issue was mentioned while we were at the Modem website.
Well, Mr. Witness, I'm not entirely sure whether that is correct, what you say, because at the very same page, for the record, Mr. President, that would be English ERN 007286999, Khmer 007341112, and French 011233659. You talk about the meeting during which this particular issue was discussed, and what you are saying about the meeting is the following. You have been asked by the DC Cam investigator questions about Im Cham, and the investigator asks you on the top of the English page, you never met her and worked with her? Never. Question, did you know that she was the district chief? And then you answer yes. When the Vietnamese entered the country, she called for a meeting once. Question, who called? The region chief Tarin and Ye Cham. They called for a meeting with all. Question, before the Vietnamese entered? You answer before the Vietnamese entered. Question, where did the meeting take place? The meeting was at Svei. Meeting at Svei? Yes. At that time, Tarin was the chairperson of the meeting. Now, yesterday, prosecution asked you a question about Tarin, person whom you knew, and the prosecution also discussed a document, an S-21 document, which seems to suggest that Tarin was detained, subsequently executed in November 78. If Tarin was indeed chairperson of that meeting, and Im Cham was present, and you're talking about the Vietnamese entering the country, I would suggest to you that the meeting during which you heard the story about the betrayal was somewhere late 78 or late 77 or early 78 instead of 1982 as you just said. Would that be correct?
What I knew was back in 1982.
Let me first ask you, did you ever attend a meeting in Svay at the time the Vietnamese fought into Svay Ring that was chaired by Rin? Do you recall having attended such a meeting?
No, I did not attend the meeting convened in Svay. However, leaders of the mobile units, including the regimental commanders and the unit chiefs, attended those meetings. I was with the fishing unit and I was far from where the meeting convened, so I did not attend it. And later on, I learned about the content of the meeting through those who actually attended it.
Let me, Mr. Witness, read one little excerpt from that same statement from you about that meeting. You're saying, yes, all district chiefs came together. In the meeting, they had a plan. They did not believe us. As for the plan, we knew that the Vietnamese had fought into Svay Ring province. They confirmed this to us. And then you say, I talked on what they told me. When I read this, Mr. Witness, that seems to suggest that you were in fact present at the meeting chaired by Tarin and Im Cham. Is it not?
I did not attend that meeting chaired by Yi Cham. And as I stated, the meeting was held, chaired by Taran and Yi Cham, with the leadership level attended it, and only later I learned about what was discussed in that meeting, that the cooperatives were instructed to dig up the ground in order to hide rice and salt, because when the Vietnamese arrived, we would be retreated to the forest, and later on we could return to fetch those supplies. And again, allow me to repeat, I did not attend that meeting. I did not know Yi Cham by then. I only heard of her name as the district chief.
Do you have an explanation, Mr. Witness, why the DC Chem investigator wrote down what I just read to you, coming from you? If it isn't correct that you were in fact present at the meeting, why is it in that statement?
The written record of my interview made an error that I attended the meeting. In fact, I did not, and only I learned about the content of the meeting through my immediate supervisor. I was with the fishing unit at the Tonle Sap, and I could not attend the meeting. And I cannot say for certain what was recorded by the DCCAM interviewer in that statement.
Let's leave your presence at this meeting for a while. What did you mean when you said to the DCCAM investigator, when you talked about the betrayal of the country by Sao Pim and Mul Sambat, also known as Runim and Heng Samrin? What did you mean when you said betrayal of the country?
I did not know how those people betrayed the country. I knew that a group fled away to Premon at Chatter Mountain, and they spoke about cadres from the East Zone who betrayed, including the names like Heng Samrin and Sao Pum. And actually, after I was interviewed by the DCCAM representative, the interview was already closed, then I had a informal talk with them, and that's what I said to them.
Do you recall what the relation was, if any, between, on the one hand, Sao Pim, and on the other hand, Runim, also known as Mul Sambat?
I did not know of any relationship between these individuals.
Do you know whether their respective children had any relationship with each other? I mean a personal relationship.
I only heard about the relationship between their children, although I did not hear it personally. I heard that Sao Pim had a daughter and Mul Sambat had a son, and they wanted to marry their children together. However, this is only what I heard from other people.
Do you know whether there was in 1975, 76, 77 a special relation between the East Zone and the Northwest Zone?
I cannot recall which year that was. Whether it was in 1977 or 78, I cannot say for sure, because that was a rumor that I heard of.
What was the rumor that you heard?
The rumor was that these two individuals wanted to become in-laws. That is Ta Sambat and Ta Sao Pum. They wanted to become in-laws.
I had moved on, Mr. Witness, but to ask you whether you knew of any special relationship between the two zones. So I wasn't referring to a personal relationship, but Do you know whether there was a special relationship between the East Zone and the Northwest Zone?
No, I do not know if there is any special relationship that existed between the two zones. I was not involved in their policy. My main focus was finding fish to supply the mobile unit.
Let me read to you an excerpt from someone who also had a, albeit not as senior as you, leading position at the Trapping Tamar Dam worksite. I'm referring, Mr. President, to E3/9060. That's a DC Chem statement of a witness who testified here. More specifically, I'm referring to Khmer page 007-33054, French 01123-699, and English 007-28747. Now this person, like I said, came to testify here, but he also talked to DC Chem, and he said, literally, I quote, "The friendship between these two zones," meaning the East Zone and the Northwest Zone, the friendship was meant to crush the Southwest to extinction in order to re-establish the revolution. Can you give me your reaction to this particular statement?
President, the witness, please hold on, and the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. My objection to this is simply that I think counsel has mischaracterized to the witness who this statement came from. He described him as a high-ranking cadre. This person worked as a guard or a soldier or guard guarding the work site. It's clear from his testimony he had no basis to have any information on the inner workings of the regime. I have no objection to him putting to this, but I have an objection to him representing to the witness that this was a high-ranking cadre, suggesting that he had some inside information about the relationships between zones.
I'm happy to be more neutral about this person, Mr. President, no problem at all. The excerpt that I just read to you, Mr. Witness, came from a DC Chem statement of someone who also worked at the Trapping Tamar Dam worksite, and he said that the friendship between the East Zone and the Northwest Zone was meant to crush or to crush the Southwest to extinction in order to re-establish the revolution. What is your reaction to that statement?
I cannot tell you about that. I did not think of anything about that at all. I only focused on my work. So for that reason, I cannot reply to that question.
Let me at least try to establish whether you in fact knew or know that person. With your leave, Mr. President, I would like to show a photograph of this particular witness. It's on the interface as well. It is E3/9443, English page 00729 It's a photo belonging to person number 42 in the DC Cam report.
Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
I have no objection to the photo. The only thing I'm curious about is why we're not mentioning his name. This person testified publicly with his name, so I'm not sure why that's not on the record here.
I was overly cautious. I just didn't. If it's all right with you, I've mentioned his name as well. His name is Lot Soy, if I pronounce it correctly. And here's his photograph, Mr. President.
President, yes, you can proceed, counsel.
I apparently didn't pronounce it correctly. Lot Soy, Mr. Witness? Lot Soy.
I do not know this person.
Very well. I think I can predict your answer to my next question, but I would like to read another excerpt anyway, and to you and ask your reaction again. Mr. President, this is E3/9579. It's a WRI from a Northwest Zone cadre from the transportation section. In Khmer, ERN 009-47282, French 009-74761, and English 009-70467. This particular individual, in a question 13, an answer says as follows. Question: did you know why the Southwest cadres came to replace the Northwest cadres? Answer: they had been accused of being affiliated with the Viet Minh Khmer Rouge and the East Zone Committee Chief Sao Pim. These two zones had turned against Pol Pot. According to my observations, the Khmer Rouge was apparently composed of 3 or 4 groups. The first group was the Viet Minh, the second group was the nationalistic Khmer Rouge, the third was the Sihanouk Khmer Rouge, and the fourth group was the Khmer Rouge from China, including Pol Pot. End of quote. Mr. Witness, would you like to give a reaction to this statement from this Northwest Zone cadre?
Answer: I do not know how to explain on this point, since I was not involved in the political sphere. I do not know how to respond.
Nevertheless, Mr. Witness, I would like to read another excerpt to you and ask for your reaction. This time it is an excerpt from a WRI from the Northwest Zone Chairman of Logistics and Economics. Mr. President, that is E3/9580. Khmer ERN 1906, French 01004437, and English 0097842. Now this witness, for your information, this individual is talking about someone with the name of Taham. Taham is the alias of an individual called Ton Tot, who testified in July before the Supreme Court chamber, not this chamber. Taham was the adopted son of Runim and deputy of the zone military general staff, according to this witness. Then the investigator asked the following question, and now I will quote his answer to you fully. Do you know what happened to Taham? Answer 29. Answer: Taham was also arrested. They were arrested together. I obtained information that both divisions of the Northwest Zone had planned to fight back against Pol Pot. But this plan had been leaked through some agents of the center. That was why the military people were arrested. A little down further, another soldier told me of hearing their leaders say in a meeting that if nothing was done about the Northwest Group, the zone would revolt like the East Zone. So, Mr. Witness, there's another individual in a high-ranking position in the Northwest Zone, still alive today, who testified about a plan of the Northwest Zone and the East Zone to revolt against Pol Pot. What is your reaction?
Answer: I do not know how to react. As I said, I was not involved in politics, and I cannot explain this point to you.
Fine. If you were not involved into politics, let me go then, with your permission, to a more practical level, if that's all right with you, Mr. Witness. And I would like to read an excerpt from a book. It's a book from Tet Sambat. More particular, it is E3/4202, Mr. President. English page 007575532, Khmer 00858342, and French 00849437. Now I'm going to be reading, Mr. President, an excerpt, but I will not mention the name of this particular person because he has a TCW number, more specifically 2 TCW 959. But I see the prosecution standing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before counsel gets to his next excerpt, for the record, again, I want to correct his characterization of the last witness whose quote he read. He described him as if this was a statement from a person who was the chairman of logistics and therefore had direct knowledge of this plan. This witness was chairman of logistics prior to 1975. During the events in question, he worked in a fishing unit in Sector 4, and in the subsequent answers, he clarified that this information, which seems to have been some form of propaganda he heard, came after 1979. So it should not be suggested on the record, it should be clear on the record here that this is not a testimony of coming from, this was not testimony from a person who held a high-ranking position about events that occurred that were within his knowledge.
I'm happy to portray this particular individual as a Northwest Zone cadre, Mr. President. I'm sure we will get back to him in a later segment. The excerpt now that I would like to read to you, Mr. Witness, comes from a head of the hospital in his region in Battambang. And this particular person said in an interview, and I quote, that in one of the meetings he attended in Sedao to overthrow Pol Pot, Ru Nim said secrecy was mandatory because anyone who was found to be part of the plot would surely be killed. TCW 959 said that after receiving instructions from Ru Nim, he ordered 70 of his men to transfer medicine and medical equipment to store at his division headquarters. Asked by his men the reason for the move, he lied and said they were preparing to make war with Thailand. Rice was also kept in rice mills, and gasoline was hidden throughout Battambang and Banti Manchi province. They planned to destroy bridges across the Sangke River in Battambang to control the west side, where they had stored equipment, food, and other materials. The plan was very big and important, and if we won, things would be good again, TCW 959 said. This particular witness, although not from your sector, so it seems, is talking about storage of food, equipment, rice, in order to assist troops within the Northwest Zone to attack Pol Pot and others. Is that something that you've heard of, storage of rice and equipment for an armed rebellion?
Answer: I do not know about all the matters you have just mentioned.
Let me go then a little further, a little closer to the place that you were living and residing and working. I would like to read to you an excerpt from a weekly report of Sector 5 committee. Mr. President, that is E3/178. I realize I only have the English ERN, so I will start with another document also from the zone. That is E3/160. It's a report from April 4, 1977 until April 29, 1977, excuse me. It's a report dated 29th of May, 1977, and it talks about the enemy situation. English ERN, Mr. President, 00143452, and Khmer 0000, so 4 zeros, 8497. On 7 May 77, a group of 50 armed Free Khmer soldiers came to attack and successfully evacuated 25 people. They burned down our rice warehouse, damaging 40 sacks of rice, and killed one of our cadres. Do you recall in your function, Mr. Witness, events like I just described, which was written down in this report from the Northwest Zone?
Answer. I have not heard of it.
The weekly report that I just referred to, that I realized that I only have the English year ends, speaks about the hitting of rice in Phnom Srok and Priya Neta Priya district. Without quoting it literally, it is a report done on the 21st May of 77, so it's a report actually from your sector. While you were at the Traping Tama Dam worksite, did you never hear Taval speak or anybody speak about the hiding of rice in order to feed rebellion troops?
Answer. I have not heard of it. No one talked about that.
Now let me return to that meeting that was chaired by Taval and Tahung. A meeting of which one witness who testified in closed session here said that you were present, something that you deny. Just for your benefit, he talked about a secret plan to arm the Sector 5 mobile unit. The meeting was at Phnom Kon Kleng. The attendees were promised to become, that they were going to be appointed captains if they participated. But the plan was, although secret, not executed. Now, I asked you the question yesterday why this particular individual would say that you were in fact present. I would like to repeat that question. Why is it that this individual who testified in a closed session would tell this chamber that you were in fact present? What would be his motive? Do you know? Or would you be able to tell us?
President, you have the floor now, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Yeah, my objection is he's asking for speculation from this witness to speak to the motives, whether this witness was mistaken, whether this person has no basis to comment on why another witness made a statement.
President, there is sufficient ground of the objection, and the question also repetitive, which was asked already yesterday. So, Mr. Winner, you are instructed not to respond to the question.
Mr. Witness, this individual who testified here in closed session also talked about someone else who attended, according to him, this meeting. A female leading cadre called Mao. Do you recall a female regiment commander or a leading cadre called Mao who worked at the Traping Tama Dam worksite?
answer. I do not know this individual.
ទាំងជា
I do not know which female you were referring to. I do not know the person by the name Mao.
Mr. Witness, I think we have established in this courtroom that you were working closely together with Taval and Tahun, that you had a senior position at the Trapping Tma Dam work site. To me it seems, or it is difficult for me to understand that you don't know anything about plans to overthrow the DK government. I have to ask you this question. Are you scared to answer questions from me?
President, you have the floor now, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
If counsel wants to ask the witness if he's scared, I think that's fine, but he shouldn't be characterizing as if it is an established fact there was a plan to overthrow Democratic Kampuchea when this is based on S-21 confessions, gossip, and propaganda from the regime itself. So he shouldn't be representing to this witness this is an established fact when it's anything but that, and then asking him whether he's scared to talk about something that hasn't been established at all.
I did so much my best, Mr. President, not to mention any S-21 documents, let alone gossip. That's why I was referring to WRIs. But let me...
President, counsel, please continue asking the question. You should not ask the witness whether or not he is scared or afraid. From his behavior, I don't think that he is afraid or fearful. He is only answering to the question and also responding to the points recorded by DC Cam, and all those points may not have recorded correctly. Sometimes the informal conversation was noted down in the DC Cam interview. Generally, everyone is not all aware of what happened in the society, and I believe the council may not have learned of all information and also may not have known all the activities we are doing. At the ECC, perhaps council is not all aware of all the matters. And for instance, I myself, I am not aware of the development or any progresses within other units besides my chamber. So you cannot draw a subjective conclusion that this person is all aware of all the matters.
Well, if I were the witness, certainly I would be afraid, Mr. President. If I would be opposition leader in this country, I certainly would be afraid. So I think it's a fair question. I think if you forbid me this question, I would like to have a ruling from the whole chamber.
President, you can resume your questioning, particularly the relevant questions in relation to facts before the chamber.
You ignore my request, Mr. President, so I ask it again. Mr. Witness, are you scared?
Answer. I am not scared. I was interviewed by the investigators. They wanted to know the truth and they wanted to know what happened at the Bangtamo Dam worksite. I have always provided the true information in relation to units within the Bangtamo Dam worksite. And as for other matters which are out of my responsibility, I do not know. I was only involved in the tasks at the Bangtamo Dam's worksite. And if the investigators, included the informal conversation in the interview, and I do not know how to respond. President, it is clear now from the witness. You may continue your questioning, counsel.
I have finished. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, the floor is now given to the defense counsel for Mr. Kyu Sompon to put questions to this witness. You may now proceed.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Witness. Yeah.
President, I think we should take a short break first before I give the floor to you. So we may resume at 10:10. Rather, we may resume at 10:15.
សូមចេញក្រោកឈរ